Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and today we're going to be taking a look at some patch 6.2 information. Ahead of the live letter, Yoshi P did some interviews with some various Japanese media sites. Fairly normal for that to happen either just before or just after the live letters. And we have some translations that were posted over on Reddit. MKillerB is the poster, so those of you on YouTube, be sure to go over, thank them, give them Reddit karma, gold, or whatever it is, as they are the ones who have done the heavy lifting. We often refer to their translations, so always good, always glad to have it. So they've rounded up pretty much all the most important points. I know there are some points that are not here as well, so I might have to scroll through the comment section as much as I dread the idea of doing that, in order to get some of the remaining points that I've heard are not actually in this translation. So, first of all, the story of 6.x will end with a certain event. This will completely change the story, and 7.0 will be based on this, which is a little bit extreme. It feels like we're building towards a story now, but this is implying that it's going to be like a sudden change that's going to force us. It sounds kind of like how they subtly build towards an expansion, but then in like 0.4, it really like hits its node, hits its stride, and that's when you can like fully identify it. 6.x will change somewhat from the usual pattern of 0.1 and 0.3, wrapping up the old story, and then 4.5 setting up the next. So it's changing from that. We knew that because 0.1 is building towards the rest of the story. It's building away from Endwalker, even though it's, still part of the same expansion. So just reaffirmation of that. He says we can expect to start seeing signs of the direction of 7.0 and 6.5. Yeah, I sure hope we start seeing it by around that time. I mean, that's a weird statement. We'll have even a digital fan fest would be before 6.5. So yeah, I think we'll have some pretty good signs of it before that, but I mean, I guess that's where the major like expansion linking event will happen in game. The thing that really sells us, kind of like in 2.5 we have what happens in that. I guess I won't say it. It's years old spoilers at this point, but the events of 2.5 pretty much accelerate us going to Ishgard like very quickly, even if they had been setting it up to that point. So it's maybe going to be just like that, I suppose, which is fine. It makes sense. It's the only other patch cycle that you can really relate to the way Endwalker is structured. The word memory in the patch title is linked both to the main story and the Pandemonium raids. Yeah, I mean, that was obvious. For example, the memories and feelings of the inhabitants of the 13th who have now become monsters, and whether the Warrior of Light and Party will reawaken those memories by stepping into their world. With Pandemonium, he mentions memories you want to seal and forget. Yeah, I mean, Pandemonium's a prison, and we've been talking about that since Themis brought it up way back in the little teaser cutscene that we got at the end of Endwalker. So yeah, I mean, that was pretty self-explanatory. Nothing to really break apart there. Although, this I really like in its implications with the 13th. We have to remember that this was once a fully flourished, functioning world, much like with the Sin Eaters of the first. But it also seems like there is a little bit more sentience, I suppose, even amongst the void creatures. I mean, even the Cloud of Darkness, while being this monstrosity that's like all-consuming, it seemed to have this degree of sentience. It's just that it drove that desire to consume. And with the few things we've seen in 6.1, it kind of is in line with that. We'll see how close the hierarchy setting. I mean, we saw that with Diablos also. It's far from the first time we've seen void creatures act way more intelligently than the average Sin Eater, like other than Vothri, I suppose. And I guess maybe Titania. It's interesting to see. I guess it depends on who is infected and how, and we know how most of the most major void creatures were probably infected by it in the first place. They were becoming monsters before the void became the void. So I'm actually really curious to see that. It's why, as much as I want to go to like Mericidia New World, I really want to like go all out with this void stuff as well. There's a lot of avenues I feel like we could still touch upon with the 13th, and I really hope that we get the chance to do that. The weakest of the Final Fantasy IV fiends will appear first. So that sounds like the theory that Scarmiglione will be the boss of Troya is going to be the case, because the trial is being kept a secret. You're not going to say the trial's a secret and then say the weakest of the Final Fantasy IV fiends will appear first. Now, I have seen an expanded explanation of this statement, in that the four fiends are going to be probably more unique and have more to their names than we're expecting, and that they will appear in the order of weakest to strongest, but that it's not going to be as, I guess, simple of an introduction to them as people expect. Oh, they're evil, we need to go defeat them. I think Yoshi P even said that they might actually approach us at some point, and not like as a you know, a sign of hostility even. So I'm curious to see how that ends up working out and how much of that translation ends up coming to fruition. Regarding the new trial, confirms it's part of the MSQ. We had suspected this. Helped by the fact Savage is releasing 1 week later. Thank you for that. He says it will not be revealed until the day of patch who the trial will be against and whether it will be part of a series. He says the trial is a bit more difficult than usual, even on normal. Yeah, but after 6.1 extreme, I don't know if I believe that much at all. You know, Yoshi P has a way of saying things about difficulty that is not entirely an opinion I agree with. So I'll be the judge of that. Second part of Pandemonium will dive further into the Ancients' way of thinking. One question to watch out for is, what are we trying to seal in the depths of Pandemonium? I mean, yeah, that's been a question the whole time. The second Savage tier will be harder than the first. So this is a general statement. This isn't taking into account the like 1 week delay or having tomes a week early, etc., etc. But factually speaking, they always tune the very first tier back about 15% because of the jobs and the rotations still being kind of newish. But now, as it says here, they expect that people know their level 90 rotations. They're familiar. At the time of the interview, Yoshida has only play tested normal, but like the new trial, he thinks it's relatively challenging. Relatively, meaning compared to other normals. So what it means is have fun, Duty Finder. Based on feedback from the first tier, that some fights Phoenix were hard to see. Yeah, let me tell you about that one, Yoshi P. They paid more attention to the visuals and visibility this time. He also implies the new tier will be flashier since some felt the last one was a bit plain. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, compared to Eden, I mean, the very first fight in Eden is a love letter to Final Fantasy VIII and one of the most extravagant ones that they could have possibly gone with. So yeah, I think that's a fair statement to say. I think that's a low bar to compare the first tier of Pandemonium to Eden and compare the visuals there. But yeah, so it'll be a bit more flashy this time. For Sephiroth Unreal, the middle phase will be a weak point for many groups. That would be the ad phase, by the way. If you don't pay attention to the order of buffs, heals, and then damaging the enemy, the tank can melt at an incredible rate. Yeah, those ads are brutal. So basically the way it works, if I recall correctly, is the big ad gives you a vulnerability up. And if you get hit by the small ads with the debuff from the big ad, it's gonna be a bad time, especially if you have too many stacks at that point. And on top of that, the little ads also explode when they die, and the big ad explodes when it dies. So you have to time all the kills and the healing. You can't just spam everything down, although we need to see how they actually scale the damage. They did say they made some adjustments to that phase because they felt like this particular part was going to be scary for a lot of groups. So it may not be as bad, but I would still expect to be, you know, abusing the fact that we have a ton more raid-wide mid. We have AoE reprisals now. We have magic barrier. You know, we have all the range fizz. Like, we have so much stuff now that stacking it all there, maybe even tank being, will probably be pretty standard for Unreal party finders, if I had to guess. Regarding the plan changes to Dragoon, oh no. There's always a fun topic. Oh boy. So, regarding the plan changes for Dragoon and Astro, the changes shouldn't be simply compared to Summoner. Instead, he mentions Ninja. Oh, okay, so that's actually a much better scope to give people. Because the Ninja changes, Ninja's identity, I wouldn't say it really drastically changed when it got fixed in 5.1. They're specifically referring to, you know, Bunshin getting stacks and Ninjutsu being made on the global cooldown and then fixing a bunch of stuff there. That was a pretty well-received rework in a sense, but it kept pretty much everything people expected about Ninja as is. So if they're going for that scale, then Dragoon and Astro probably won't feel like completely different jobs, but they'll feel, they should feel improved if that makes sense. The things that are clunky about them should be improved, which was the main goal of that Ninja update. Regarding Dragoon, the discussions have been about reducing the number of actions that need to be used by merging actions, though he says he would like to avoid changing what Dragoon has to do as much as possible. Sounds like Dragoon's getting one-button combos, is what it does sound like. Now, if there was any job to do it, Dragoon is one of the few jobs that could possibly get away with it, only because it's the only job that has 5-button combos. Yes, I know the fourth and fifth parts are essentially one way or the other towards the end, but of all the jobs to go from an extended combo with multiple buttons down to a single button, Dragoon's the only one that makes sense to me, and it sounds like that's what they might do in order to reduce the button bloat on Dragoon. It's also possible that just Fang and Claw and Wheeling Thrust could be merged into one button. That's a much, I guess, less... I don't know what the word for it is. It's just another way of doing the same thing without reducing it by as many buttons. So that's something there as well. For Astro, the changes are related to the cards. That's so specific. You know, it's not like we've never seen card changes before in the past. Oh boy. It's difficult to decide on adjustments to the card since there are voices for and against the RNG elements. Yeah, so just get rid of them. No, they're not going to get rid of them, I don't think. But here's the thing. I won't be surprised if they are reduced down even further to be like 2 possible cards you can draw, and that's it. And they get rid of the seals and Astrodyne again. It wouldn't surprise me. I don't know if they're going to go that route, though. The changes to direct hit and critical hit will be explained at length. I expected this, so good confirmation, I suppose. On the new variant dungeons, most dungeons in 14 are designed to be linear, since in a multiplayer game, veteran players will decide the most optimal route through a non-linear dungeon, which could cause friction between new players. I agree. There will be ways of changing on the routes through the variant dungeons, such as pressing a switch to change the next boss mechanics, but it might not always be a good idea to press the switch. By playing multiple times, you collect information on the lore of the dungeon, and this can include hints to hidden routes. There are 2 bosses per route. So this is variant, not Criterion Dungeons. This is like the super easy story mode difficulty. But just giving a bit more information on the structure of it, the decision making, and how it will impact the actual dungeon. So you may have more or less mechanics, you may have completely different bosses, and this is why they want you to play through it a few times to get all the possible outcomes. It's something I plan on doing. I think it could be a cool idea, but of course I'm more excited for the high challenging Criterion Dungeons, which we already know have a set path, a set route, and I wonder how they're going to incorporate the bosses that are in the variant dungeon. Like, are we gonna have to fight all 6 or 8 bosses if there's like 3 or 4 routes in the regular variant? Will we then have to fight all of them in the Criterion dungeons? Are they all gonna have their own mechanics? Is there a way to change the mechanics? I think it's gonna be a lot like Delubrum Regine Savage, just reduced down to 4 people. I think there's going to be little hints and secrets and hidden objectives, like, you know, there's the miniing yourself, for example, in order to slip through the grates to unlock the door. I think we'll see little niche things like that, like we saw in DRS, and I guess by extension in Baldesion Arsenal, when we get into the Criterion difficulty and the Criterion Savage difficulty. There will be unique variant actions in the dungeon. I suspected this would happen, such as recovering HP or increasing defenses. This can help make up for a missing roll, since the normal difficulty can have any party composition. Doesn't sound like it's as involved as something like Eureka actions or Bojda actions. It sounds like it's just something for the variant version, because only the normal difficulty version can have any party comp when you queue into it at random. So I think that that's not something to expect in the Criterion difficulty. Unless, you know, maybe it is. It's possible, but I don't read it like that based on this interview. For the higher difficulty Criterion Dungeons, via Party Finder, you can do any comp. That's how the rest of the game works, of course. But Duty Finder will match 1 tank, 1 healer, 1 melee, 1 ranged of either Fizz or magical variety. The difficulty level is too high for the Savage version, so there won't be matching for that. Yeah, you have to do a pre-made party for the Savage version. I am very much looking forward to that. All right, Island Sanctuary doesn't have a storyline attached to it other than some simple quests leading to the player to the island. I heard some people complaining. They were worried this is what was going to happen, and I'm kind of just like, I don't really care. I just want to do Island Sanctuary. They want like it to be some like grand reward for all of our adventures over the years, and I'm like, nah, dude, just give me the island. I don't care. You telling me they're gonna make me pick up poop and this is my reward? No. My reward is the friends I made along the way. Okay. So I don't really care. It doesn't make a difference to me. The weather will change on the island, but it won't snow because of where the island is. It's a tropical island, so no snow. Mostly, Island Sanctuary will not connect to the rest of the game's systems, e.g. being able to get tokens to exchange for items outside of the island. But when you explore to the limit, you will find some elements connected to the outside world. I'm sure that just means mounts, minions, you know, maybe housing furnishings that you can use in the house that you totally own and definitely got that isn't the island because the island's not a house. So yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm just here for the shinies. Okay, I'm here for the shinies. He implies some elements of the island's development will be on a weekly timer, namely cultivating crops. I expected there would be daily or weekly lockouts to quite a few things. That's not a surprise at all. And unlike in Animal Crossing, you won't be pushing your clocks ahead a week in order to bypass this. So, sorry. Let's see. I think this may have already been confirmed, but for further confirmation in these interviews, housing items cannot be used on the island. The island is not a replacement for housing. Instead, it's about developing an uninhabited island. Yeah, no, they keep saying it, but that doesn't mean people are going to believe them or listen or care or it doesn't change. Where this conversation is going to have to still be had up to 6.2 day. There's no stopping it. And you're going to find shout complaints about it the day of it releasing. Like, wait, I thought this. It's like, no, they literally never said that. I think, let's see. There will be rewards such as mounts. There you go. Like I said earlier, for making progress with developing the island. The interviewer asked if mounts can also free roam the island. Yoshida says first he wants people to enjoy the minions, but maybe there will be mounts later. I didn't even think about that. I think I'd seen a couple people suggest that as well. But I just imagine like releasing like Eden or Omega onto the island. It's like, yeah, just go out there, live your lives. And they're like, okay, I want to go graze, I guess. That's what wildlife does. That's pretty funny. Then we have, oh, this is a big one. You can queue up for the duty finder while you're on the island. It's not an instance, technically. So, that's nice. That's a fun little thing. They always introduce content where you can't do duty finder stuff while you're doing the other content, and people wish you could. That's not going to be the case here. You can queue up for the duty finder while on the island. Nice. On the Relic Weapon, for the past two expansions, they've been tied to large-scale content like Bozja and Eureka. True. But this is both its good and bad sides. Also true. This time, since the team are working on a lot of content, other content for the expansion, it was decided to return to the A Realm Reborn and Heavensward model. So that means if anyone hasn't done those weapons, essentially it means tomestones, the uncapped tomestones are going to be very valuable. You'll be farming a lot of those. There's going to be a lot of very specific objective-based rewards, such as like you need to do this 24-man or this 8-man or these types of dungeons like expert dungeons or leveling roulettes to get rewards. Books are a possibility, of course. That's always a scary thing. And don't be surprised if we have a couple of light steps along the way. That's where you usually spam like a dungeon or a trial for like, you know, a period of time to build up a resource on the weapon that's gauged by, you know, the time of day and which instance you're actually doing, etc., etc. We don't know the extension to this. I don't think we'll get anything as egregious as A Realm Reborn and Anima's worst steps, but that's what that means. It's not going to be tied directly to only one piece of content. That doesn't rule that content out from being included in the possible objective rewards, however, such as the new deep dungeon we're getting in 6.3, or maybe even variant dungeons at some point. Who knows? They could include them, but they're not guaranteed. On top of that, in discussion with both the scenario and battle team, it was decided it would be a lot of fun to make Manderville weapons related to Hildy. Look forward to what happens when Godbert and Geralt stand side by side. There will be a simple progression to the 0.25 quest, and he hopes people can play it casually like with the anima weapons. I would not consider the anima weapons a reference to enjoying something casually. That being said, I get two different reads from that statement. The first read is that simple progression reminds me of what we had for 6.25 last time, where it was about an hour's worth of quests. It was like one instance, and then we got our first weapon, and then secondary weapons were really easy to get with like tomestones or something. But then he says casually enjoy it like with anima weapons. So, yeah, I don't know how much this is going to be like the 5.25 quests, because that doesn't read like that right there. So, we'll see. I'm kind of torn between the two statements. On Crystalline Conflict, the devs plan to improve the season ranking reward since there was feedback. Yes! There are also plans for an official tournament. Yes! The devs are currently fairly pleased with the job balance based on Season 2 data. I am too. I still think there's some jobs that stay ahead, but we do see most jobs. I think Summoner is a job I don't see that much, and some people are still a little stingy against Reaper, even though Reaper's doing a lot better now than it was before. Black Mage still really strong, Red Mage still really strong. I think it's the only reason Summoner seems more whelming or just underwhelming, is because the other two are really good, but we've seen some great summoner plays, especially in the Wolves League as of late. One really, really crazy comp has been running this like super defensive comp where you have tons of sustain and shielding, and a summoner using the Phoenix limit break is actually a part of that, which is a surprise because we pretty much exclusively saw Bahamut in season 1 of the Wolves League. So I'm excited to see what other changes that they make, because I think it is in a relatively good place, and some other small adjustments. I think they really just need to try to improve the responsiveness of Guard and Purify. I think that's still the top of the list for PvP changes I'd like to see. At the end of the interview, he mentions new UI features coming in 6.2. I mean, yeah, we know about the changes to the job action section. I wonder if he's probably referring to other stuff as well. There's also a bit more detail in the interviews on some of these, but I'm short on time this morning. Well, I know that Audrey went out of her way to do some translations over here, and while I have them up on a separate tab, he does just make mention of some stuff from the Pandemonium raid, just delving even deeper into it, and they're still making some last-second adjustments to the story and to make sure that it's exactly what we want out of it. Talks about how they're sealing stuff away. Then Audrey also talks about how talks about the 13th a whole bunch, and of course the pacing of the story, like we mentioned in this. And I know there's one other thing that I haven't seen mentioned so far. Yeah, and then this mentions the four Archfiends. Some of them might even directly approach the Adventurer, but expect to see them from weakest to strongest. And then I think in the comment section right below this, I remember scrolling down before we started. Here it is. It's a little bit off screen, so let me just do some mid-video adjusting right here from NHFT. Something I found interesting in the full interview that wasn't included by the OP, and I'll read the section that's cut off from the side because of the size. You see, this is what happens when you size your videos for one thing. There we go. Look at that. Now we have the technology. Unlike in 6.05, they will not be delaying tomes to coincide with Savage, despite the 1 week Savage delay, because they don't want to risk upsetting casual players. Tomes will come out a week before Savage. Yoshi P acknowledges this is a huge change and encourages everyone to give feedback on how it feels after experiencing it. They're aware that the fight will likely be easier because of the higher item level, and they discussed rebalancing them to make them harder, but for now they don't want to make too many changes. We knew that. Yoshi P had said that in the previous live letter, that they were not planning on making substantial changes. Actually, I think it was in an interview, to the actual balance, because if they make a change, it has to be one that is sweeping, like across all aspects of the 8-man balance, of the Savage balance. And so they weren't going to be making any changes, and they would take feedback and make changes later. So the only thing is, he didn't explicitly say we would get tomes week 1 or the week before. But that says it without saying it. This is just him outright saying that we will be getting tomes week 1. It was just, it was obvious to me, but some people really needed to see this particular thing. So I am glad to see that they are confirming that, and it is going to mean a 630 weapon for the final fight. It's going to mean probably 1 or 2 tome pieces, depending on which pieces you buy for all the other jobs, and it means crafted gear won't be as sought after, especially when combined with the EX weapons that everyone should probably have going in. So there's all sorts of little things that go into that. But for me, I'm okay with it. Honestly, I'm just glad to finally have the 1 week delay, because I have wanted it for a long time. I get to enjoy the story. I get to enjoy the extreme trial. I get to enjoy Island Sanctuary, apparently, which is coming in 6.2, much to my surprise. And I don't have to worry about it as much until the time comes. So I think they should fine-tune the delay when we get to 6.4, but for now, I'm content with the way it is. I have no problem with getting through the raid tier faster because of a weapon, because I'm still going to have to learn all the mechanics, and that's for me the majority of the fun, not the DPS check. The figuring everything out is the part that's fun. So with that, that's the information that came out of this interview. There are some deeper details. I'm sure if you dig around, you can find some extended statements on most of the stuff. Like I said, Audrey had actually done some translations over on Twitter as well. So I'm excited. So let me know what you think in the comment section of the video below. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, you have a good one. Take care.